Hello, this is Jay Mitchell, and we are back from another episode of the Libertarian Censored podcast, going over all the posts in the Libertarian Censored subreddit. Let's get into it. So first we have, is voluntary slavery compatible with right libertarianism from Hero of Country, and that's a cross-source from the Libertarian Unity subreddit. And I personally would say, if it's slavery, it is involuntary. It's inherently not voluntary. With that being said, I think if someone does want to consent to being a slave, I think they should be able to. But I do think they should be able to revoke that consent at any time, because as libertarians, we believe in consent, not forcing people to do things. If someone does want to be a slave, I think they should be able to be one. But if they ever feel like revoking their consent to be one, then they should be able to do so. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Internet Archive's ebook lending is not fair use. Appeals court rules from ArsTechnica.com by Patam 13. And yeah, I think that's was a wrong decision by the appeals court. I think that goes against archiving and preserving materials, and it's only going to lead to more things getting lost over time. I personally I'm not 100% on the pirate side. I would say I do like piracy sometimes. But with that being said, I do think this is stuff like this decision's only going to make it so more materials need to be pirated so they can be saved rather than lost forever. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Biden close to blocking Nippon steel deal to buy U.S. steel, sources say from Reuters.com by Patam 13. And I would say that's overly protectionist. I think if a foreign company does want to buy an American company, that they should be able to. And I think this deal is overly protectionist, kind of like tariffs, even if it may be well-intentioned, but to keep U.S. steel American-owned. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Republican Liz Cheney endorses Kamala Harris. I wonder if she considered Chase Oliver from APnews.com by Patam 13. And yeah, if I was Chase Oliver, I wouldn't want Liz Cheney or her father's endorsement. They're huge warmongers who I would argue are both worse than Donald Trump, but Donald Trump's just marketed as being worse by the TV. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have The Hidden Lives of Our Politicians. AI is only going to complicate everything by Humanitas Ante Otem. And that's a cross-source from the TikTok cringe subreddit. After seeing some starting thing, maybe we should need to do some AI regulations, and it's Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. It looks like all in some, and there's Barack Obama suggestive poses for using AI. And yeah, I personally think AI regulation might be well intentioned, but I think the libertarian position is let people do whatever they want with AI, just like let them do whatever if they want with everything else, as long as they're not hurting anyone else. And I think it all comes down to free expression. Free expression does apply to AI. I guess you could make the case of, well, some things should be legal for even if they're done by AI, like child pornography. And I guess I could kind of agree with that. But with that being said, I do think free expression is extremely important, and I do think that applies to AI as well. And even if it's something like that should be legal, like child pornography, I think you should be able to do it as long as you're keeping it to yourself. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Russian media being called out in surprise. Guess who? From Donald Key, and that's cross-sourced from the Age Like Milk subreddit. Timmy Pool's going to go through some stuff, and that's a tweet Tim Pool made on March 22nd, 2019. The people screaming about Trump working for Russia are the same people demanding social media censor quote-unquote misinformation. Stop listening to these people. And I would agree from there. He might have been taking money from Russia, but with that being said, even if he was openly taking money from Russia, I still don't think that should mean he'd be censored. I think propaganda is free speech. I don't care for all the Reddit propaganda, but I've never argued for it to be censored. And yeah, I think if you want to take money from Russia, I think you should be able to. And I still think that falls under free speech. And yeah, it's also innocent until proven guilty. I think that's important to remember as well. Then we have J.D. Vance's solution to childcare crisis. Maybe grandpa or grandma wants to help. Just don't be poor or unlucky, you stupids. From rawstory.com by C.H. Warlocks, crossovers from the News of the Stupid subreddit. And yeah, I do think that is spoken from from a position of privilege. Not everyone's gonna have a grandpa or a grandma with that being said, I don't want the state overly involved in childcare, just like I don't want the state overly involved in everything else. And I think that's important. I think if people do want to pay for a state child care service, I guess for voluntary taxation, they should be able to. But I personally think, as a libertarian, the answer usually always lies in the free market, and that's why I think what childcare is right now. I think you have so many daycares across the country. It's then they seem to be doing fine. So that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have. Now is not the time to do anything. The only useless answer is thoughts and prayers from CH Warlocks, and that's crossover from the Conservative Terrorism subreddit, #GunViolence, from the K-12 school shooting Twitter account reporter. What can be done to make Georgia schools safe for governor? This is not a talk about safety or policy. We need thoughts and prayers for victims, law enforcement, educators. And yeah, I personally don't really care for gun control. People say, what about school shootings? Well, sometimes school shootings might happen, and that's the sad reality of our world. When a cop shoots someone, they don't blame the gun, but when a school shooting happens, they blame the guns. I think that's interesting. It's all about really what the narrative is, not what's actually happening, I would say. And that's very important to note. Sometimes tragedies do happen, and you might not be able to do anything about it, but that's not an excuse to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have our DEI hires bad for the society from Oluwazi Gunner. And I said, I didn't comment on that one, but I think I would argue that if people want to hire for whatever reasons they want to, they should be able to. But that being said, if people are only hired for factors such as their race or gender, don't be surprised if they aren't capable of doing the job. And I think that's important to consider when it comes to DEI hires. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have immigration in the land question from the internationalunion.substack.com by Anarcho Federation. An article written over 100 years ago they added. And yeah, ultimately I think immigration is usually pretty good, when it comes to getting in a new source of labor. Both that being said, sometimes, it can go overboard. And, in Aurora, Colorado, they have Venezuelan gangs occupying apartment buildings. And I think that's where you should maybe say immigration can go too far. I think if immigrants, I'm personally more on the open border side, but, just because I support people's rights to free travel doesn't mean I support them when they travel somewhere else and bring a crime with them, and that seems to be a lot of modern immigration is. A lot of illegal immigrants are bringing violent crime and gang warfare. Like MS-13 is a big gang that's really come up through illegal immigration. And I do think even if you're a gang member, you have the right to free travel. But with that being said, I personally wouldn't want you in my community, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have police are towing Teslas away to collect onboard video footage from roadandtrack.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, I personally don't think the police should be taking anyone's property away, even if they have a warrant, but that they have the force to do so if they want, and that's the world we live in. Then we have cash alone proves inadequate to solve the problems of the poor from Lemon Limelight. And they said from a Washington Post opinion piece, cash alone proves inadequate to solve the problems of the poor. Recent evidence suggests that giving lower-income people cash doesn't actually solve their problems, at least not in the way it's intended. For instance, when economists Raymond Klunder, Neil Mahoney, Francis Wong, and Wesley Yang partnered with Undue Medical Debt to study the effect of debt forgiveness on its recipients, they found no improvement in utilization of healthcare, no relief from financial distress, and no improvement in overall mental health. In fact, the most indebted people are here to become more distressed, not less after their debt was forgiven. Another group of researchers looked at the effect of unconditionally granting people one-time cash grants of up to $2,000, 2 months' worth of his household income on average, and found that though the recipients' consumption increased, they experienced no improvement in their financial health, their psychological well-being, their cognitive capacity, or their physical condition. And then there's a few more paragraphs. Meanwhile, in the test of UBI, low-income households up to $1,000 a month for roughly 40% income boost. And here too, the benefits were exceedingly modest. Well, their recipients' savings increased somewhat, so their debt, so their household was improved very, very little. Other measures of financial health, such as credit delinquencies, bankruptcies, foreclosures, and credit utilization, were unchanged, and a temporary increase in self-reported financial health eventually evaporated. And yeah, I'm gonna skip the rest of it. But yeah, I definitely think UBIs it seems to be a lot of people's solution to get a lot of people out of poverty. But I think a lot of the poor, they don't have as much a money problem as much as they have an impulse control problem. I personally don't think you should be be out in the streets doing drugs all day. I don't think that's healthy for people. But if you want to do that, that's on you. But that being said, even giving these drug addicts tripping out in the street money, that's not going to solve their issue. They need more than that. They need help getting their impulses under control rather than just giving them money. And despite what a lot of people think, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have American activist shot dead in occupied West Bank from BBC.com by Flimsy 5563. And yeah, I definitely don't think that's good. I think the United States needs to stop giving weapons and money to Israel as soon as possible. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have House passes bill to prevent Biden from withholding weapons to Israel as GOP ramps up pressure on Democrats from May 2024 from CNN.com by CH4Locks. And yeah, I think that is not good. I don't think the U.S. should be giving foreign aid to anyone for any reason. I think all foreign aid should be given voluntarily or privately rather than through taxpayer dollars. As Ron Paul once said, foreign aid is often taking the money from a poor people in a rich country and giving it to the rich people in a poor country, and that I think is very much what you're seeing here, or it ends up being like pretty much arms proliferation, which the United States has historically done very much in the past. Most recently through the Bishop Sycamore program they did with not Bishop Sycamore, what was it called? Was it called? No, it was called. That was what was it called? They did an arms program for Syria, and yeah, that led to a lot of arms proliferation. And the United States says, a lot of American politicians say we need gun control. Well, they're completely fine for arms proliferation overseas. It really just goes to show you that a lot of people are just hypocrites when it comes to politics, if anything else. Then we have basic book on syndicalism, some tips on, it's Timber Sycamore, that was the program. Bishop Sycamore, I think, was a high school that was a fake high school that was a college, high school football scandal a while ago. Then we have basic book on syndicalism, some tips on how to use it from libcom.org, from Malatesta Fiesta, and yeah, yeah, I think if people want to be syndicalists, I think they should be able to. With that being said, I do think syndicalism does a lot of syndicalists these days do want to use the force of the state to enforce syndicalism on people, and I don't think that's very libertarian. Then we have Judge in Trump's hush money case delay sentencing until after election. Another loyalist man's leader remains unaccountable from CH4Locks from abcnews.go.com. And yeah, ultimately, I do think, a lot of these legal hearings, especially the hush money one, are lawfare against Donald Trump. They only serve to make him more oppressed and appealing to the eyes of a lot of his voters. But with that being said, I do think, you should handle it after the election. And if he ends up winning, and he's in a position of power to throw it out, ultimately, then that just goes to show you that, you failed. And sometimes, you just have to keep on trying. They've already impeached him twice. They've tried all this lawfare against him. They even might have hired that guy to try and take him out, that Thomas Matthew Crooks. And Donald Trump just keeps getting back up. I've never been a Trump supporter, but I definitely do think that's admirable in a way. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then alternatively, it could all be theater. You don't really know. Donald Trump doesn't strike me as the most authentic. He just strikes me as wanting fame rather than wanting liberty for all. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Dick Cheney says he'll vote for Harris from NBCNews.com. I put on 13, and I think that helps Trump more than it hurts him, because everyone knows that Dick Cheney is a corrupt warmonger who shot a guy in the face, and the guy who he shot in the face apologized to him for it. And yeah, that's why people don't like Dick Cheney. And it just goes to prove the point of a lot of people that say, the Democrats are now the party of the neocons. The Republicans are arguably the more classical, the 90s, 2000s Democrats these days. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Texas sues for access to records of women seeking out-of-state abortions from MITimes.com by FlimsyL5563. And they said the lawsuit takes aim at federal privacy rules, including one enacted this year by Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, called a backdoor attempt at weakening Texas's laws. And yeah, I personally think all health information should be private. But ultimately, the state does have the power to justify seeing whatever it wants. Then we have Florida goes full police state over abortion ballot initiative. Florida's reportedly sending police officers to homes of people who signed a petition supporting abortion rights ballot initiative from NewRepublic.com by Baton Fertan. That's across from the Fuck the All Right subreddit. And yeah, I definitely don't know if I take the New Republic, that's a notoriously progressive source. I take that for a grain of salt. But that being said, ultimately, if the state wants to send police officers to your home for any reason, it ultimately does have the ability to do so. And I personally don't care for it, but that's what the government monopoly on force is. And let's see if there's anything new. Looks like there's nothing new since then, so we're gonna wrap up there. I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.